Simple interest is defined as the percent profit that you make based on an investment. So for example, if you were to invest $1,000 into a bank or a company or whatever, and you invest at an interest rate, a simple interest rate of, let's say, 5%. And let's say you're doing this for a year or so. Simple interest means every time they calculate the interest, it's on the initial investment. So originally I put $1,000 in. 5% of $1,000 means I would get $50 of interest. So that means every time the interest is calculated, I get $50. So the first time the interest is calculated, I end up with $1,050. Then I get $1,100. Then I would get $1,150. Then I would get $1,200. Every time that my investment grows, it's always growing by $50. So 5%. The way that we can calculate the interest on any investment, if the interest is simple, to find how much money we're going to get in interest, we use the equation I equals PRT. And then we label our investment here. The I represents the interest in dollars. The P represents the principal, which is the original amount of money that you put in. So in my last example, the principal would be the $1,000, the original amount. The R represents the rate of interest as a decimal. So what I would need to do is I would take my 5%, and to make it a decimal, I would divide by 100. So if I were to use it in this equation, I would have to use 0.05 as my number. And finally, we have T, which is our term, and it is calculated in years. So if you want to know how much interest you can gain from investing your money, you need to know what percent your interest rate is going to be. You need to know how much money you're going to invest originally, and you need to know how long you're going to be investing it for. The key with the term is to make sure that your investment is always converted into years. So if you have days, let's say you only want to invest for, 65 days. To convert it as part of a year, you would need to divide by 365 to convert it to years, because there are 365 days in a year. If you had months, then you would divide by 12 to make sure that you convert it into a year, because again, there are 12 months in a year. Same thing with weeks, and so on. And this is also all on your formula sheet as well. So the key thing here is our formula is I equals PRT. And when we have letters up against each other, what this is saying is that it's principal times interest times term. So in our first example, we have a question that says, if you invest $560 at an interest rate of 5.4% for 15 years, how much interest would you receive? Okay, so I have three pieces of information. I have 560, 5.4%, and 15 years. So if I'm investing $560, that's my original amount that I'm putting in. So this is going to be my principal. The 5.4 is my interest rate, so that's my R. However, I need to make sure that it's in decimal form, so I divide it by 100. I get 0.054. And 15 years is the length of time that I'm going to be investing, so this is my T. So when I'm looking for how much interest, what is the amount extra I would get for leaving it in the bank for 15 years? I start with my P, multiply my R, and I multiply my T. In this case, my T is already in years, so I don't have to change anything. So I put this into my calculator, and this tells me that in 15 years, I will get an extra $453.60. That is my interest. In the next question is saying if you invest $4,500, that's an important piece of information, at a rate of 3.2% for 30 weeks, how much interest would you get? And there's also a second question. What is the total amount of your investment? So first thing, I'm going to focus on looking at my interest. Okay, my original investment is $4,500. That's my P. The interest rate is 3.2%. Again, I have to divide that by 100 to make it a decimal. And now my T is 30 weeks. And I don't want to use weeks into my equation. I can only use years. So I need to divide by how many weeks there are in a year, which is 52. So in my equation, I equals P times R times T. The numbers that I'm putting in are 4,500 times 0.032 times 30 divided by 52. And if I put this into my calculator, this tells me that the interest I would get is $83.08. This is my interest. So this is the extra amount I would get. To find the total amount that I would get, I take my original amount, $4,500, we add 83.08, and this tells me that my total number is $4,583.08. Okay, so I represents the interest, the extra amount of money that you get. The total amount of money that you get is represented by the letter A, and I think of A as the amount, the total amount that I get. In this example, what we're going to do is we're going to be learning how to go backwards. So, for example, my original equation for simple interest is I equals P times R times T. But there are times where I will know what I is. I will know what P is. I will know the rate, but I will not know the time. And in order to find the time by itself, what I need to do is I need to do BEDMAS backwards, get rid of all the letters next to T, so that I can get time by itself and figure out what that equation is. Well, here P and R are multiplying time, so what I want to do to get rid of them is actually divide by P and divide by R. And I'm going to do that on both sides of the equation. And you can do this one at a time, or you can do it all in one shot. But to get T by itself, I have to divide R and P, so that means I get I divided by P and R. So I undid that. I got them by themselves. I would do the same steps if I wanted any other letter. So let's say again, I start with I equals P times R times T. But let's say this time I don't know what R is, and I'm looking for R. Well, again, because all of them are multiplying, then to get the R by itself, I need to divide both sides by P and T. So for the R to be by itself, I need to divide by P and T. So now I get the rate. And I would do the same with the principal amount. So if I knew my interest rate, but I didn't know my original, but I knew my percent, and I knew how long I was going to invest for it, I'm just going to change this color here. Then to get the P by itself, I take my interest rate, I divide by R, I divide by T, and now I have my original amount itself. Don't forget that your R has to be as a decimal and that your T has to be in years. So let's take a look at these two examples. It says Mike earned $67 in simple interest on an investment of $2,800 after 9 months. What is the interest rate? So this is saying that I know my interest, I know my principal, I don't know my rate, but I know my time. So the interest that he got was $67. The original amount he put in was $2,800. I don't know my R, and I know that the time that he put in was 9 months, but to change this to years, I have to divide by 12, right? There's 12 months in the year. If you stick 9 divided by 12 into a calculator, our term actually ends up being 0.75 of a year. All right, now to get the R by itself, I need to divide by the principal and I need to divide by the term. So I take my $67, I divide by 2,800, and I divide by 0.75. And keep those in brackets, that way the R is by itself. So putting that into my calculator, I get that R is 0.0319. I'm just going to round it off to 3 decimal places. Now, remember when we use rate in an equation, rate is always in decimal form. But it's asking us for the interest rate, and what it's implying is that we want it as a percent. So to get it back into percent form, I just have to multiply by 100. So the interest rate that Mike invested in was actually 3.19%. In the next question, it says, how many years must $2,820 be invested at an interest rate of 3.10% per year in order to earn $420 in interest? Okay, so our interest that we get is $420. The rate that we're invested in is 3.1%, but to change it into a decimal would be 0.031. And the original amount that we put into our investment is $2,820. What we are looking for is how long will it take for this to happen? So originally, again, I start with I equals P R. This time I don't know T. So to get the T by itself, I need to divide by P and R. So I take my interest rate, I divide by P and R. So that means $420 divided by 2,820 times 0.031. That's going to give me the term in years. You don't always have to do them together. You could also do them one by one. That's totally up to you. But if you have a calculator that's scientific, that has 2 lines, then you can do it all together in one. So the way that you're typing it in is exactly how I said it. 420 divided by, open bracket, 2,820 times 0.031, close bracket, hit enter, and this tells me that in order for this to happen, to get $420 of interest, I have to wait 4.8 years. Oops, I just wrote a $sign. Sorry. My time is in years, not $signs. So if I took $2,820, put it in the bank at 3.10% per year, after 4.5 or a little over 4.5 years, I would have $420 extra.